Who knew that K-pop stans' talent for Twitter spamming could be harnessed for good, or that it would be so fun to watch?
For years, fans of Korean pop groups like BTS have become famous and, at times, infamous for slathering social media with videos of their favorite artists. But over the past week, K-pop diehards have been putting their skills to another use, flooding police apps and harmful hashtags with videos of dancing pop stars to support Black Lives Matter protesters. They crashed a Dallas police cam app on Monday, they flooded the hashtag White Lives Matter hashtag on Wednesday, and on Friday they came for QAnon hashtags. During a wrenching week with few bright spots, these spammy acts of solidarity have proven both humorous and hardening.
I was very surprised with the reactions. Rania, a 20-year-old K-pop fan in Europe who helped swamp Dallas Police's iWatch app, told the Daily Beast in an email, because K-pop stans on Twitter don't have a nice reputation. Sadly, the app is now back up and has flagged spam accounts, including Rania's.
Since I don't live in the USA and couldn't do anything aside from signing petitions, spreading awareness about the movement and retweeting any new information or video, I thought that I might help on this one, Rania wrote. K-pop stans are known for posting fancams, fan-shot video clips of individual performers anywhere, even on unrelated tweets, which annoys a lot of locals, haha, but I'm glad this time, it was for a nice cause. For the uninitiated, locals, to the K-pop community, are, well, the uninitiated, aka non-fans.
For Claudia, a 17-year-old fan who lives in Slovakia, K-pop bands' messages are part of their appeal.
I've loved music since I can remember and I've always tried to find artists that spread important messages through their music, Claudia told the Daily Beast in an email. When she first encountered BTS, she was enchanted by the music, videos, and choreography. Later on I learned about their messages and meanings carefully crafted into their art, Claudia wrote, adding later, even though the K-pop industry has its dark sides, K-pop really showed me that music does transcend languages and races. It's truly incredible that it's spreading into the whole world.
Claudia was among those who flooded the hashtag White Lives Matter hashtag on Wednesday. At first, she was angry to see the tag trending, but when she opened the tag and saw nothing but fancams from her fellow stans, she felt relief and decided to join in. I didn't want people to click on the hashtag and see what the people who started the hashtag planned to spread.
And it's not just fans who are getting involved, K-pop artists themselves have been posting messages of solidarity with Black Lives Matter to social media. On Thursday BTS tweeted, "We stand against racial discrimination. We condemn violence. You, I and we all have the right to be respected. We will stand together." Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Korean rapper CL posted her own message highlighting the dead K-pop and other artos black artists.
Artists, directors, writers, dancers, designers, producers, stylists in the K-pop industry are all inspired by black culture whether they acknowledge it or not, CL wrote. I would like to encourage all the K-pop fans to give back and show their love and support for all that we have received from black artists. I want to explain to all the K-pop fans, fellow Asians, and non-Americans who feel like they have little or no connection to what's happening that we are all connected at the end of the day. And don't we, Asians living abroad, also face enough racism to the point where we are numb and sick of it? We must stand up together as one helping fight for justice.
Other musicians, including Jay of Day 6, Mark of GOT7, and rappers Jay Park and PH1, have all donated to causes including Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd Memorial Fund. For many on social media, K-pop fans' benevolent spamming this week has come as a bit of a surprise, but as Korean Herald pop culture reporter Hyunsu Yim pointed out Thursday, this is not K-pop fans' first time using their broad global network for good. A lot of people seem to think that flooding the Dallas Police Department's Snitch app targeting Black Lives Matter protests with fan cams is the first time K-pop Twitter went political, he wrote, but it's far from it. Yim cited a few examples. In 2018, K-pop fans spread awareness about a bus crash that killed 2 students in Bangladesh as protests erupted to call for safer roads. Last winter the Chilean government blamed the protests that had erupted months before, in part, on them, and earlier this year they funded more than 35,000 school lunches for disadvantaged children in the United Kingdom. For Rania, becoming a K-pop fan also sparked an interest in South Korean culture and politics, and although she can only do so much from afar, she has signed petitions for causes including the Burning Sun scandal, the North Room case, and South Korea's presidential scandal.
When asked about the praise K-pop fans have received for their recent spammings, in contrast to some of the ire they can occasionally inspire, Claudia said she's glad people like and support this idea. I really do hope that people will start to see us in a better light instead of having only negative thoughts toward us.
The K-pop community, she said, is definitely the most powerful community I've ever been in. We can really change things if we want.
Peaceful protests in New York took a dark turn late Thursday as graphic video emerged of an elderly man being knocked to the ground by police in Buffalo, and protesters in New York City were confronted with swarms of police officers using heavy-handed tactics to enforce a statewide 8 p.m. curfew.
The shocking incident in Buffalo's Niagara Square occurred outside City Hall, where video posted by local media shows the man approaching police as they attempt to clear the square, only for him to be violently shoved. He then falls backward and slams his head into the ground, left seemingly unconscious as protesters can be heard screaming, "He's bleeding out of his ear."
Buffalo police later released a statement saying they had arrested 4 people and that a 5th person was arrested during a skirmish with other protesters.
Cops claimed in the statement, during that skirmish involving protesters, 1 person was injured when he tripped and fell.
Buffalo Police Commissioner Byron Lockwood initially told the Daily Beast authorities were looking into the shoving incident, though he said he hadn't seen the video. Moments later, he ordered the immediate suspension of the 2 officers involved. Mayor Byron Brown issued a statement saying he was deeply disturbed by the video after 2 Buffalo police officers knocked down a 75-year-old man, leaving him in stable but serious condition. He said the officers involved had already been suspended without pay.
Early Friday, Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz said the elderly man was at a hospital in the city and is expected to recover from his injuries, but added, simply put, the officers must be held responsible for their actions, not just fired.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo was also quick to condemn the incident, which he called wholly unjustified and utterly disgraceful. On Friday, he said the Erie County District Attorney was looking at potential criminal charges against the officers involved. But on Thursday, he had flat-out denied that police officers in New York City were guilty of using excessive force, calling it incendiary rhetoric to suggest otherwise, despite numerous videos capturing heavy-handed tactics.
Even as Cuomo condemned the Buffalo violence late Thursday, large groups of cops in the Bronx and Brooklyn were captured on video enforcing the curfew with force, using batons on protesters who had been demonstrating peacefully. The
crackdown came after city leaders had spent much of the day defending the NYPD against accusations of excessive force. After a spate of videos went viral showing police officers apparently using brutal tactics against protesters earlier this week, in one instance driving into a crowd, in another striking protesters with batons even as they walked away, both Mayor Bill de Blasio and NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea on Thursday praised police officers for their restraint during the unrest. Shea pleaded for an end to violence against cops and vowed to hold police officers accountable for excessive force, saying some would probably face suspension. Protesters told the Daily Beast it was delusional for Cuomo to claim police haven't been using excessive force in recent protests. I think it's delusional, I think it's willful ignorance, and I think it's dangerous, Derek Ingram told the Daily Beast. Black bodies have been vilified for so long that I think statements like that, with how violent police are, make it even more dangerous. It's scary. Police brutality is so ingrained in our culture, a statement like that isn't going to do anything. It has to take fundamental retraining of police. And I don't think a mere statement is going to change that, he said. Other protesters said the NYPD was responding to the protests against police brutality with more police brutality. I don't know what Cuomo has been watching, but I've seen police officers, they're not agitated, and they're using the same kind of force that got us here in the first place, Richard Edwards said. We hear from commissioners in the past over and over, what they say on a public platform and what happens in reality are 2 different things, he said.
Cops were not just aggressive with protesters, credentialed members of the media were also targeted.
Brooklyn paper reporter Ben Verde, who was reporting from a protest in Williamsburg that turned ugly when cops charged at protesters, tweeted that police told him, "I don't care, go home," when he held up his NYPD press credentials. Media are considered essential workers and are exempt from the curfew.
Verde said a senior officer threatened to take his press pass if he didn't leave.
NYPD spokesperson Sergeant Mary Frances O'Donnell told the Daily Beast late Thursday that the department would look into Verde's account but offered nothing further.
Just after midnight, de Blasio posted tweets urging police to allow food delivery workers to do their jobs past the curfew, after video emerged of a staffer being arrested. He also said he was urging the NYPD to treat journalists as essential workers, adding, "We will protect their rights. The public depends on the information they provide."
Verde told the Daily Beast he's been covering the protests all week, but this is the first time he has had a run-in with cops. It was clear that not only were they trying to clear the streets, they were trying to clear cameras from the streets, he said.
That incident is just the latest in a series of hostile and ugly encounters members of the media have encountered with the NYPD in the course of their reporting since protests kicked off. A HuffPost reporter was arrested and later released while covering protests Saturday, while on Tuesday a team from the Associated Press were harassed and threatened by cops.
Despite the flare-ups of violence in New York, protests in other cities took on a calmer tone in their sixth day.
In Washington, D.C., a determined crowd of protesters gathered outside the White House. The heavy military and law enforcement presence that's come to define the protests in the nation's capital was on display, as military vehicles manned by National Guard personnel hemmed in the crowds and were stationed in corners around downtown Washington.
Despite those surroundings, demonstrators described a positive and uplifting, not menacing, vibe to the day's proceedings.
"This is love," said Mikey D., a 33-year-old man who brought his daughter to the protests. "This is a mark in history.
Clearly, it's making a difference," said Mangus Wilson, a 32-year-old D.C. area resident who was passing out bottles of water. But he said he, and others, would keep showing up every day. "There's no end in sight, it's like Corona."
As a crowd gathered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, apocalyptic thunderstorm clouds moved in at a rapid clip around 8 p.m. when intense wind, rain and lightning hit. Most protesters dispersed, but a determined crew remained outside the White House until the rain passed, wearing ponchos and staring into police floodlights.
Joe, a 42-year-old protester from New York wearing a soaked white shirt with the words, "No Peace," written on it, was taking a break from shouting chants in the corner.
"It'd take a hurricane to stop us," he said.